Welcome to Wildlife Rehabilitation from Rescue to Release, a podcast dedicated to licensed wildlife rehabilitators and the veterinarians who support them. I'm your host, Gail Buell. Techniques we discuss here are meant for licensed wildlife professionals. If you aren't licensed and trained for wildlife rehabilitation, do not attempt to rehabilitate any wild animal. If you do find an injured wild animal, a wildlife professional can recommend next steps. We'll tackle topics about rescue, care, management, reconditioning, and releasing wildlife found in North America. This is a deep dive into each subject. We hope to give rehabilitators information they can use because they're already going to great lengths to rescue and nurse animals back to health. There are 3 possible outcomes in wildlife rehabilitation: release, euthanasia, and placement. An injured or orphaned wild animal's journey to restored health and independence is delicate and complex. We draw techniques and expertise from many disciplines. Many animals brought into rehabilitation cannot be saved. The last gift we can give them is humane euthanasia. We will talk more about when this is necessary. Sometimes animals are deemed non-releasable and evaluated to be suitable for a life in captivity. When that happens, we shift to a long-term approach to managing their care, training, and housing. These animals serve as ambassador animals, a term for the animals that rehabilitators use to educate the public. Each episode, we'll speak with experts who represent specialty topics across the profession of wildlife rehabilitation and ambassador animal care and management, showcasing best practices. I continue my conversation with Stephanie McMahon and Renee Schott about compassion fatigue, but this time we dig deeper into how to recognize it in ourselves and what to do about it when we do. As rehabilitators, we know how to give to help others and give and give and give. That's what we do. We can be very fulfilled by that, but we also have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and each other as a sector. Burnout is a real phenomenon, and it often starts with sadness or thoughts of being inadequate when we feel we can't help enough or that it will never be enough. Let's jump in. So one of the things that I was reading, actually thanks to your Facebook page, which I will let you talk about in just a moment, is you posted an article by Lindsay Freeman called The 9 Elements of Realistic Self-Care. Because we certainly hear a lot about self-care, and all the different things that you should do. And I do completely agree with Lindsay Freeman when she mentions that the cosmetics companies and the people who want to sell us stuff have really kind of capitalized on this self-care thing, but that's really surface stuff. You know, buy this makeup and you'll be great. Buy the skincare regime, it's great. Lose some weight, you'll be fine. So I totally agree with her there. And I do agree. She has 9 suggestions for kind of really, I don't want to say basic because it's not basic, but bringing it kind of down a notch. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say, but making it so it is, like she says, realistic self-care. So where does self-care fit in this? Is this really knowing yourself? So before you even get into wildlife rehabilitation, you are, and your cup is still full, you are practicing some of these first. And Renee, you mentioned, trying to figure out what you do then when you get into crisis with the busy season, or what do you guys, I want your opinions on self-care and where that fits and how it should fit. Stephanie, do you have, I'm sure you have. Yeah, she's smiling.
I've lots
and lots.
Lots of opinions on self-care. I go based on the fact that self-care is a feeling, not a to-do list. So it's what brings me balance, what allows me to work and function in my personal life to the best of my ability without completely draining my resources. And what that looks like for different people is going to vary. So going back to the article you were talking about, I brought it up. Some of the things that she recommends are great because it's all, boundaries, expend your energy wisely, making sure that you're taking some time for yourself, refilling your cup. So eating, sleeping. Like if you're not sleeping, most things in your life are probably not going well because you don't have the capacity. Sleep is very, very, very important. If you get one thing down, try your best to get sleep down. There's lots of ideas on self-care being things that we have to do. So you need to journal, you need to meditate, you need to make sure your house is clean, you need to do all of these things. And for some people, that's great. For other people, that's not what you need. For some people, it's really just managing your energy.
Yeah. The cleaning of the house, no. Not so much. Ain't happening over here. So,
right.
Anyway.
And for some people, self-care is learning how to say no, learning what your limit is and where you have to kind of scale things back.
Mm-hmm. We all have a finite amount of energy to do things, and we can try to get more energy by giving ourselves what we need, which, needs to start with sleep and food, shelter, and then it kind of goes up the hierarchy of needs to social interaction and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be different for everybody else. So I have to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. Then I can function at 100%. If that suffers, I can't function at 100%. I might try to convince myself I can, but I can't. Mm-hmm. And we're really good at fooling ourselves. And so that's that feeling. If I wake up too early or go to bed too late, the next day I just have that feeling in me where there's a little more tension and my mind is a little bit foggy. And so you have to start kind of recognizing those feelings in yourself so that you can learn what your body needs and then give it to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As you're talking about that, especially for sleep, I'm thinking about orphan care, especially orphan mammals. And many of those orphan mammals, at least traditionally, the way we've done it is they get fed in the middle of the night, maybe multiple times in the middle of the night. And I've certainly done it.
So if you take home orphan mammals and have to get up 3 or 4 times a night to feed them, mm-hmm. you probably can't do a full day's work.
Right.
That's just it. I mean, there's this reality of a lot of these different situations. Mm-hmm. And then how do you deal with that? Well, you either take in the orphan mammals or you decide not to, and you take in something else during your full day of work. So, sure. You have to make those choices. You aren't responsible for all of the injured and orphaned wild animals that come to your doorstep.
Ooh, can you say that again?
You are not responsible for all of the injured and orphaned animals that come to your doorstep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's powerful.
Mm-hmm. It is. Stephanie, do you want to add anything to mammal care in the middle of the night?
Again, it's preparing for it, right? So building the resiliency of, okay, from this day to, roughly around this time, I don't sleep through the night because I have orphaned raccoons that need to be fed at, 2:00 in the morning, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So how do I adjust the rest of my day to be a little bit easier? Because I know I'm not getting my sleep in the middle of the night for whatever this baby season, like whatever that looks like for you. If you have a baby season, some places go year round. And so what is sustainable? What's sustainable for me? And how do I look at it and prepare for it and make it okay? Because there's always going to be people who say, well, there's nobody else. I'm the only rehabber in my area. If this baby doesn't come to me, it will die a slow and painful death. I can admit it for euthanasia, but it's a healthy baby, blah, blah, blah. So they compromise their energy. They compromise everything. They compromise all these other areas. So it's okay. I'm going to compromise in this area, but what am I going to do to adjust the rest of my life to make this manageable? If that's the choice you're making, if you are compromising to have however many animals you're going to take care of,
right?
What else are you adjusting to make that sustainable for you? And if you're not adjusting anything and you're trying to just make this work, you are on a road to burnout. That career is just not going to be sustainable for you. Mm-hmm. And if you try to make it sustainable, that's where the health issues come up. That's where the burnout comes out. You're going to maybe burn some bridges, burn some relationships, mm-hmm. have issues with health, digestion, all of these other things, because it's just not sustainable. Right. We like to think that we can mind over matter everything.
We can do it all. I will prove it.
Your body will tell you.
And I also think, well, it's certainly individual and everything. Age makes a difference sometimes on some of it, right? It adjusts as your body changes. And I'm sure I was not nearly as effective as I thought I was when I was in college and was really only running on 5 hours a night of sleep and thought I did fine. And now I'm like, I don't understand why I can't run on 5 hours of sleep. I'm sure I wasn't effective back then either, but I thought I was. So I fooled myself. So
We
Renee.
do that all the time. We do that constantly. That's why we burn out, right? One thing, since most of the people in this field are women, just traditionally, I think a lot of women have grown up with really negative feelings towards our bodies, in general, but especially our reproductive systems. And so for me, that was a big tipping point. Once I finally embraced my menstrual cycle and the hormones and really learned to capitalize on when certain hormones are high and go and focus on myself when certain hormones are low, then I was able to really appreciate the superpowers it gives me when they're high and sort of recalibrate my normal to being sleeping normal amounts and focusing on myself. And then when I have extra to give, I can go and do that, but that's not my norm.
Right.
I don't know. That just really helped me.
So those things change.
Exactly.
As well, right?
Exactly.
Right?
And the more you can have that self-compassion for yourself and really turn toward it instead of fighting it, that will help you gain more capacity.
Exactly.
Your whole body, your conscious mind, your unconscious mind, your physical body, your nervous system, it's doing everything it can to help you survive, but evolved in the caveman days. So it doesn't work in our modern life. But as much as we can turn towards it, we will then harness that power and be able to stop fighting ourselves and wasting so much energy that way.
Right, right. How would you want to kind of explore or talk about how you came together and said, hey, we're interested in trying to help others on this journey? Because the two of you have done that. A lot of people know about, at least on the surface, right? Compassion fatigue and burnout and all this kind of stuff. But you two have taken it a step farther, which is one of the reasons I have you on the podcast today, is to say we do want to help others on this journey. So do you guys want to explore that a little bit and what that looks like and how that's evolving?
It's hard to figure out where I want to start with this. So building the podcast, building the Facebook page, it was, how do I help others in such a way that maybe they don't leave the profession? A lot of people start off, run themselves into the ground, and then quit, versus understanding the process and how to come back from it and how to manage it and how to, that there's nothing wrong with you. It's not like I couldn't do that job.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, that is the answer. For some people, they get into it, they gain an understanding and they say, yeah, not for me. And that's good that they realize that and that they're able to step out of that. But there's people who really feel that it is their calling and that there's maybe not enough support for them, not enough resources for them, not sure how to do it. So creating that sense of community. There's a lot of self-care stuff out there that is basically, you go do this on your own and we'll give you a pizza party at work and tell you we appreciate you and keep burning staff to the ground kind of thing, right? So it's building that sense of community and the feeling of you're not alone. Other people go through this, and how do we get through this together and keep tabs on each other and help each other through it, rather than say, yeah, there's something wrong with you, you're broken, you need to leave.
Right.
So Steph and I connected over that podcast class and email back and forth, and we're kind of like, yeah, this is interesting, let's meet. And we both had like the same exact idea for a mission at the same time. It was really kind of kismet that we met up. And that's exactly it, to try to inform, educate, create that community, try to spread the message that this is an occupational hazard. There's no way to avoid it. So let's try to be prepared for it. and then give people a resource. So we started the podcast. We've only have a few episodes done because we're practicing our own self-care. But we hope to further it. We started a support group during COVID. It kind of waned because people stopped coming. I think there was just too much Zoom burnout at that time. But, whatever way that we can help that will help people find the support they need, I think is what our mission is. So we didn't even mention the name of what we named this all.
Goodness, it's a wonderful name.
We had no idea what to name it. And then in the middle of the night, I woke up and I'm like, Wellness for Wildlife Warriors. And I emailed her in the middle of the night. I woke up and I'm like, that's a stupid name. She's like, no, it's glorious. So
it is. It's a powerful name, right? It's a powerful name. I don't know if you call it W cubed for short, but okay. Because when I was looking it up on the Facebook page, and I'm a part of the Facebook page, I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. So if folks listening want to be part of this group, they can join the Facebook group. What do they need to do?
Yep. Just search for Wellness for Wildlife Warriors on Facebook, ask to join the group, and you're in. We just are making sure that people are in the wildlife rehabilitation community. It doesn't really matter what aspect, but certainly come on in. We have links to our podcast, and we're hoping to produce more episodes soon.
Oh, awesome. And just for our listening audience, because of course this is a new podcast too, that both Renee and Stephanie have agreed to be on. Podcasting is hard. There's a lot of work involved behind the scenes. Yes, behind the scenes, there's a lot of work. So I completely appreciate why it's taking a little while, but quality stuff coming out of Wellness for Wildlife Warriors. What else, as far as other, and maybe there's not other, I don't want to say that the stuff that we've already talked about wasn't valuable, because it's incredibly valuable, but are there other resources, action steps, other things we haven't talked about that you're like, oh, I wish you would ask me X, Y, or Z? Let's go. What do you think?
There's so much, and yet it can be hard to find exactly the resource for you because it's so personal, right? Everybody needs to be practicing self-compassion, so they can look to Kristen Neff and her books on it. Looking at Diane Poole Heller and her attachment style quiz, if you would like to work on your childhood attachment wounds, which everybody should, I'm sure we all have them, is a great place to start. The HSP test by Elaine Aron is great to start if you think you might be HSP, and then she's got a great book about how you can really sort of embrace that and manage your day-to-day life and really use your superpowers. So there's lots of different resources depending on what support you need. It's just trying to find them. So I think if you're struggling, maybe you could post on the Facebook group what you're struggling with, or what area you think you need help, and I'm sure one of us will have some advice from our own experience.
Right.
Stephanie?
Yeah,
and just adding to the book list, I'm a big fan of Gabor Mate. So The Body Says No is a great book by him. There's also Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score. So it's about the somatic experience of trauma. So those are two great resources as well to understand kind of your physical reactions to the work that we do.
Excellent. And we'll have links to that in the show notes or on the resource page on the website for sure. Yeah.
And just to reiterate that being traumatized is not, everybody says they're not traumatized, right? Well, I'm not traumatized. There's some stigma attached to that too. I never got in a car accident or whatever. It's not that big T trauma. It's the little things that happened when we were little that had a much bigger effect on us that our parents didn't realize, because they're probably also had attachment wounds of their own, or other demands on their life. Mm-hmm. So these are
and
all
even just
no, go ahead, Stephanie.
even just not necessarily even from when you were little, but even just all the injuries that you see kind of accumulate over time. They're all small T's for us because we're not physically going through them, but they add up.
Yes, they totally add up. And even if you don't cognitively know they add up, they're adding up in your nervous system and your unconscious. 10% of our brain is conscious thought, 90% is unconscious and attached to the rest of our body and our nervous system. So when you start to get depleted, you can really see how all of those things add up and that you're actually not dealing with them the way you thought you were.
Right, right. And the goal of one of the goals that you guys are working toward is try to get people resilient and helping them not only to be healthier themselves, but when they're healthier themselves, then they can extend themselves to helping these other creatures that we love so much.
The more you run yourself into the ground, the less you can help others, including animals. And so the healthier you can be, the more work you can do. The industry has traditionally just chewed up and spit out people, right? We burn them out 3 years, we kick them out the door, they leave us, and we go on to the next new group of young people to be the rehabilitators. That's, recognizing that is good and noting that it's not a very ethical way for these organizations to run. And then the new generation they're not tolerating that, right? They want work-life balance. They recognize the importance of it. So we, as higher ups in our organizations, need to make these changes from an organizational level. So at our center, we've budgeted money this year to help compassion fatigue and the mental health of the employees. We're starting a book club this month with a compassion fatigue workbook that we'll be working through whichever staff want to they can we can do whatever we want. They can come and not show up, or they can just take the book home. And then hopefully that will give some people insight into other supports that they could use, and we'll invest in that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You're kind of putting the tire to the road or whatever. You're saying, look, this is important. We're going to do it. And we're going to put some money toward it because it's important.
Yeah, there's 3 ways we can combat this type of stress. And one is the industry, meaning, is there a way to avoid compassion fatigue and secondary traumatization? No, that's the work we do, right? We're helping injured wildlife. So we can't really change that. But what we've been doing in the past is putting it all on the employee and saying, hey, you need to work on your self-care. We've been self-care shaming people, which is part of it, that they need to do their own self-care, but it's not, shaming does no good. The part we haven't addressed is the organizational. Each organization has its responsibility to support its employees and help mitigate the effects of occupational hazards. And this is one, right. So we need to actively work on that.
Right. And that, unfortunately, when you are an independent wildlife rehabilitator like myself, you don't have an organization to maybe help at all with that or try to understand. So that is definitely a little more challenging.
Definitely. Go make sure you're involved as much as possible. A lot of times when we get stressed or have other things burn out in our life, we tend to isolate. Again, that's evolution, right? The sick animal goes off by itself, so it doesn't attract the predator to the herd. But we need to counteract that. Humans need other humans, and connection makes us feel better. So seek out other people. So if you're an independent rehabilitator, can you find your state organization and other independent rehabilitators? Do you have a state conference? Can you go to NWRA? Can you join IWRC? Our state organization will have a symposium this coming weekend. And I'm speaking on compassion fatigue there. So there's a lot of ways we can bring it to independent rehabilitators, and that you guys can help support yourselves by seeking out each other.
Right. I think that's a great point, because I think networking, partly because humans need other humans, but networking helps in so many different ways, including this.
Agreed.
That you're not alone.
Yes. And even though you cognitively think that, like I did that, I cognitively knew that, but my nervous system and my unconscious didn't, until I started talking with another rehabilitator. And then when you're having that interaction, your body can feel it, and it chills out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie,
the
connection. So not last, because I'm going to have you back again for sure. This has been a phenomenal conversation, but anything that you would like to talk about that we haven't talked about?
I think touching on the organizational aspect is really important. Going back to Renee's point of, if you are in an organization making that part of the culture where people do get time off, people do get days off. Again, we like to work. And the next thing we know, we're burning through staff. We've made some changes in our organization as well to hopefully start changing that, but it is a cultural thing. So changing workplace culture doesn't happen overnight, but moving in the right direction. That's the hope. The other part of that is seeking out more people who can, talk to you about whatever your experience is. So again, like Renee said, connecting with other rehabbers, connecting with your state organizations. We have in Ontario just started a Ontario rehabbers group. We don't have a, provincial organization, but even just getting together and saying like, what diseases are you guys seeing? How are you treating this? How are you doing that? It's been very good at bringing people together and having somebody to kind of talk to in terms of like, okay, now I know the names of a few people that I can maybe email and say, hey, look, this is what we're seeing, or this is how I feel about this. What are your thoughts? And that creates that connection that I'm not alone. If I have questions, I have someone I can go to.
Right. I think that is just so incredibly important. And cultures at work or wherever are very slow, sometimes very slow to change. Not always, but sometimes very, very slow to change.
With the right leadership, they can change quickly. But easy things to look out for, I think, or red flags are martyrdom. So if you have people that are like bragging about working until 2 a.m., right? So we shouldn't be bragging about sacrificing ourselves, bragging about scars, bragging about how hard they work. We want to facilitate a culture of putting ourselves first and then work second. So everybody's bugging everybody to go on their breaks, right? Make sure you go on your break. Everybody is trying to get everybody else out on time. And if we can't, then the higher ups need to step in and hire more people or reduce the workload. So knowing when to put pressure on the higher ups, knowing when to put pressure on yourself, but really trying to have that team culture of keeping things positive and putting each individual before the work is important.
Do you think that is, so this is a connected question, that changing that culture, does that need to come from the top down, like from what you said, the higher ups, or is it grassroots, or is it both, or what is it?
It's both. It really depends on the team members you have and the leadership type you have. There are some people who cannot gain the capacity to do this work, and so then you need the higher ups to recognize that and help them move on. And then there are some people who really just need a little extra support. And so if that's within the capacity of the organization, let's give that person that support. And so it can be a fine balance of the supervisor, the higher ups knowing how to take care of their team, but also in an independent way that promotes each individual as an adult self. They're not our parents. And so it really depends on the team and the leadership. I think it's complicated.
Complicated, but again, incredibly important. Important. So that doesn't, even if it's complicated, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't start. It doesn't mean, and it's one step at a time, right? Changing that culture and all that stuff is just one step at a time.
Yeah, you have to. If you have a huge problem in your workplace culture, you need to change, or you will not be able to fulfill your mission. So you have to work on it. You have to start somewhere. And it can help to have an outside perspective come in. There are companies that will come in to just assess your workplace culture. They don't have to care about what you do. They're just literally looking at how people are interacting, and different ways like that to say, this is the most bang for your buck. These are the changes that can get you the most bang for your buck.
Right. And if you're a nonprofit organization, or even if you're not, you might be able to find some grants to help you with that.
Yes.
I'm just putting that out there instead of people, because rehabilitators are often, going on, well, that's going to cost money and can't, I got to buy formula. I can't invest in that. But again,
It will
grants.
often, there are grants, and it likely will pay off in the long term, that you'll get a better return on your investment for that type of consultation, honestly, because your workers will work better, faster, more efficiently, more cohesively. They'll all be happier. There'll be less drama. You'll have time to do the things you really like to do at that job instead of just being everybody's therapist.
Right. And not being trained for it. Like
Yes.
Stephanie, right?
Yes. Oh my
exactly.
gosh.
It's like, yeah, here's some chocolate.
Yeah.
Some chocolate.
Well, and some of these changes don't cost money. It doesn't cost any money to encourage people to eat and take their lunches and their breaks and everybody leave on time. And if, again, you're consistently not leaving on time, you need more staff, you need more volunteers, you need to fix something, you need less animals, whatever it is,
Right.
There's adjustments that need to be made. And those adjustments don't have to cost money.
Mm-hmm.
A pizza party is not going to fix your staffing issue. But often people are like, here's some pizza and a yoga class and we'll do some team building or whatever. But if it's not going to fix the underlying problem in the organization.
Right. Leaving on time, making sure that everybody gets out on time and eating and not having to work till 2:00 in the morning. That helps. And a team atmosphere, right? That everybody's supportive of each other is certainly helps. Not the entire answer, but helps. So I want to also mention the name again, which is, and I get to say it this time because it is such a great name, Wellness for Wildlife Warriors, or W Cubed, and find them on Facebook. Also, the start of their podcast there, asked to join, and there are a lot of articles, and there have been some get-togethers and things like that on that page. So, and we will also list lots of resources in the show notes, but also on our website. We'd love to hear what you think about these episodes. And you can email me at gailbuell@umn.edu. And you can find that also where we have the website and the show notes. You can know how to get a hold of me. So interesting and so much fun to have this conversation. And it is a very important conversation that we need to not only start to have, but to continue to have. That this is something that needs to be part of our whole journey with wildlife rehabilitation. So thank you again very, very much. Really appreciate it. And thanks to all our listeners for hanging in there and listening to this great subject.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Did you know that you are enough? So am I. You've chosen to share your gift of caring and helping to the world and the wildlife in need in that world. If no one thanks you for that gift, let this serve as a thank you to you. You're appreciated for what you do, and you do make a difference. And I feel privileged to be in your company. Thanks for being here listening to the podcast, and we'll see you next episode. This was another episode of Wildlife Rehabilitation from Rescue to Release. We're glad you joined us today. Wildlife Rehabilitation from Rescue to Release is a production of Partners for Wildlife, working hand in hand with wildlife rehabilitators and veterinarians to improve the welfare of orphaned, ill, and injured wildlife. Our executive producer is me, Gail Buell. I'm the Partnership Coordinator for Partners for Wildlife at the University of Minnesota College of Veterinary Medicine's Raptor Center. To learn more about the Raptor Center and Partners for Wildlife, visit Raptor at umn.edu. Our producer is Kurt Clockey. Are you interested in becoming a licensed wildlife rehabilitator? Visit the National Wildlife Rehabilitators Association website at nwrawildlife.org for resources to get started. And remember, if you do find an injured or orphaned animal, please contact a licensed wildlife rehabilitator in your area. And that's our show. Hope you'll join us next time.